G'day everybody, my name is Elliot Waters and you're listening to the Dysregulated podcast. As always, thank you for tuning in. Alright, today's episode I want to talk to you about the new series, Dysregulated Daily. If you haven't seen Dysregulated Daily yet, I encourage you to go on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube because Dysregulated Daily is the new series that I've just launched. I'm very excited about it. And this episode here today on the podcast, I want to go through what it's all about, why I'm doing it, and what it means coming up in the future once this data is collected. So, Dysregulated Daily, it is a short video check-in series where I, Elliot Waters, me, from the Dysregulated podcast, I am planning on checking in every day with a video to say how things are going for me, how my mental health is, how my mood is, and my capacity, and anything else I feel is relevant to how I've been feeling that day. So it is very stripped back, but at the same time, I reckon it's quite intimate, which I think is a great way to look at mental health and the complexities of living with mental illness, because this is the thing, right? So here on the show, on the podcast that is, I do episodes, obviously, and usually when I do episodes here, it's when I'm feeling pretty good. And the fact of the matter is, most of the time, I'm not feeling brilliant, and I want that to be captured, and I think it's important because there's a lot of other people who are going through very similar things to me. So I want to really capture it as well, because I think in those lower moments is where some of the great insights really are, and the real wisdom and the lessons to be learned, I think, on how to navigate mental illness. So don't get me wrong, there's no performances on Dysregulated Daily. There's not on this podcast either, but there certainly won't be. It's going to be me every day. If I'm feeling great, I'll say so. If I'm not feeling good, I'll say that as well. So prepare yourselves, because it isn't going to be all me laughing and giggly and happy and all that sort of stuff, because I want to show you what the realities are like, for me at least, living with mental illness, because I can tell you right now, every single day, make no mistake, I'll say it again, every single day is a battle. Now, the reason it's called Dysregulated Daily is because I am dysregulated daily, okay? There's no two ways about it. I have multiple mood shifts throughout the day, and I don't think the podcast so far has been able to capture what it's like day to day for me living with mental illness, purely because of the aims and the way it's set up. It's not, don't get me wrong, this podcast is amazing. I'm sure you guys would agree, but it is episodic in the sense that there's no continuity like there's going to be with Dysregulated Daily. So essentially, Dysregulated Daily is going to be my daily mood chart, okay? So I'm calling it my mental health journal, and it certainly is. And it's going to, in effect, act as my mood chart. And I am going to keep score of my mood as I go along, but I'm also going to be measuring capacity. That one is very important. So before I get into all that detail, though, it is important that I say that most change in my moods happens in between the episodes I do here on the show. A lot of it happens when I'm not able to do episodes here on the show because I'm not feeling particularly good. You know, I'm thinking that the podcast is a waste of time, that, you know, I should give up doing it, that my story is not unique or valuable in any way, you know, that sort of stuff, all that negativity, you know. Those moments aren't captured brilliantly because I'm not able to create content when I'm feeling really that low, but now I'm going to. And it's going to be difficult because for this to work, this regulated daily to work, there's got to be repetition. I've got to keep this going, you know? So then the patterns of my mood and the patterns of my capacity can be highlighted, looked at, analysed, and learnt from, hopefully. That's the plan. So when I am in these really low moods, I've just got to think, you know what? Forget about trying to decide whether doing all this work is actually valuable or not. Forget that. Don't care about that. Just do the check-in, Elliot. And I've got to remember that when things are really, really difficult And there's going to be some videos, some dysregulated daily videos where I'm probably in bed and it'll go for 10 seconds and it'll be like, today's a complete write-off. This is my mood score. This is my capacity score. I'll see you tomorrow. And that might be it. But at the same time, that is, I think, as valuable and insightful as any other check-in. And for people who don't live with mental illness, I think it'll offer a lot of insights into what it's like for people who are. And for those people who are listening who do have challenges with their mental health, I think you'll notice and see a lot of similarities between what I'm going through and what perhaps you are as well. And that's a huge part of this, is that I want to make the realities of living with mental illness accessible to people. And I think this is going to be one of the best ways I can do so. So the podcast, don't get me wrong, this podcast is, why am I laughing, is brilliant. And I'd like to think it is, and what it's going to do moving forward, it's going to be my long form of storytelling. It's going to give me more time to talk about mental health disorders in lots of detail, to look at the science and the research, and to talk about my advocacy work. But for my day-to-day mood changes and how things are going, Dysregulated Daily is where all that is going to be. So it's not going to be a detailed diary. It is my mental health journey, but at the same time, it's me, it's Elliot. I'm not very good at focusing on things for too long. So don't expect, although this episode's proving so, but don't expect too many episodes that are long-winded, because it is me, and sometimes I just got to get something done so I can feel good about myself and about things. So it isn't always going to be a detailed daily diary entry, although I think some episodes will certainly come across in that form, which would be good. It's not really a place where I'm going to explain everything every day. So some days I'll feel up to it and want to really analyze what I'm thinking, my cognitions and all that sort of stuff. But other days I just won't have the capacity, which is something I'll talk about in a minute, but capacity is very important. So don't expect massive detailed explanations on what's going on. Often it'll just be me recounting what's going on without the analysis, because often I just do not have it in me. But I'm going to tell you all about that. And that in itself, I think, will be enlightening for some people. Now, if you can hear rain, just to interrupt slightly, it's because I'm in my car at the moment recording. I'm going to do a video actually of me recording, because I'm doing this in a new way, which I think is going to help with me being able to put episodes out. But I'm in the car and a storm is coming across. I don't know if that means anything or not, but if you hear raindrops, it's because it's raining outside. All right. So the problem with mood-only check-ins. So this is going to be essentially the data of my mood and capacity, but I'm not going to focus just on mood, because mood is very subjective. It can be misleading, because, if you've got the positive vibes going, you can say, yeah, my mood's brilliant, but that doesn't actually mean that the way in which you're able to connect and engage with the world is also brilliant. It can be clouded by these positive vibes, which maybe aren't actually rooted in reality. And as a result, mood isn't necessarily the clearest metric or determinant of how one person is able to engage, like I said, with the world and do the things they need to do and tick off the things that need to be done. But at the same time, mood is important because it is how you feel, and it is subjective, but at the same time, it is your perception of how things are going, and if you're feeling good or if you're not, so mood is important, but it is a bit of a noisy data metric, as you could say, in science, because of course I'm a behavioral scientist. The data isn't always as objective, although it won't be in this, because obviously it is subjective because I'm giving the ratings, but I am trying to make this as objective as possible. But mood is important, don't get me wrong, it is. But for example, you can feel pretty anxious and be in low mood, but you can still be performing well, which was me yesterday, for example. You can feel pretty good emotionally, but still be unable to function. And that's not good, even though the mood score would suggest that things are all hunky-dory. And you can very often, and this is so true for me, feel very, very flat, but still be able to show up and get everything done. And that can be lost if you're just looking at mood charts and mood scores. So the flatness can make your score, I don't know, 3 out of 10 for mood. But your capacity for showing up and getting everything done can actually be a 7, for example. So it's important, I think, to show both sides of the coin. But mood is important, but it isn't the only, I guess, telltale sign or data entry point or metric that I want to use to show whether I'm engaging in life in the way that I want to. Because mood, I think, can hide some deficiencies, although I don't want to make this, pointing the finger saying you're hopeless. So it's not about that. There's no shame or anything involved here, but it can hide the fact that maybe things can be done better, and that mood, that good mood, can actually be, rooted in something really solid and then able to be expanded upon instead of being fleeting like sometimes it can be. So the other metric I want to measure is capacity, all right? This is very much a core concept of Dysregulated Daily. So this is how I'm defining capacity in this sense. So capacity is usable emotional and cognitive energies, the ability to use the nervous system in a way that helps achieve one's goals, and it also represents this idea of functional bandwidth. So how available am I to life today is essentially the question I want to be asking. So mood is very much about the emotional tone of things. Capacity is about functional availability as that rain comes down. This is quite nice, actually. I'm enjoying this. So Dysregulated Daily isn't just about tracking happiness, which I believe to be a very superficial and a very thin emotion and headspace. What I really want to track with Dysregulated Daily is my availability to life and the things that I need and want to get done. So I've come up with this capacity model, okay? So the capacity model, remember, like I said, I am a behavioural scientist. I have an honours degree in psychology, and I am a researcher at the University of Newcastle, and I'm pretty stoked that I've come up with this little model here. So this it's the idea around, I guess this is how to ascertain my internal logic in a way. So this is how I want to read capacity and how I define it. So capacity equals access times stability times energy. So access is all about, can I reach my skills, thoughts, language, and values when I need them to be able to do the things that I need and want to do? And then stability is all about the nervous system. Oh, my overactive nervous system, dear oh dear. I've got lots of breath work to do, everybody, let me tell you. But stability is all about, like I said, my nervous system, and am I steady enough to be able to use the, I guess, energies that come from my nervous system. Not so much energies, because that's its own parameter, but I guess, is my nervous system in a state that I'm able to use it as a functional base, that's better, as a foundation to then be able to do what I need to do? Because if your nervous system's all over the shop, for example, anxiety is very, very much part of the nervous system paradigm. They are intrinsically linked. If the nervous system is not stable, then output won't be stable either, and then mood suffers as well. So stability is a big one, and it's a big one for me moving forward because it is not something I'm particularly good at. And the third parameter, the third factor is energy. So do I have the fuel to act? So I didn't explain that very well. Let me say what the model is again. So capacity equals access times stability times energy. Now the thing is, if one of those links drops, the whole output drops as well. So if I've got great access and I'm feeling quite stable, so those two are really right up there, but then energy is on 0, well, capacity equals 0, okay? And the saying goes, if there's no access but I'm feeling stable and I've got energy, well, that's great. But if I can't access what I need to, the skills, thoughts, abilities and skills, if I can't access them, well, there's no capacity. So again, capacity equals access times stability times energy. So it's going to hopefully explain those confusing days at times I have where motivation doesn't equal ability. So there's some days where my motivation is not very high at all, but my ability to be functional and my capacity is still right up there. That happens quite a bit. And that's something I want to really drill into and analyze a bit further with Dysregulated Daily. Okay, so also, Dysregulated Daily is going to implicitly scan 4 domains. These are 4 domains that I'm really going to sort of, focus on, not necessarily talk about explicitly, although they are implicit in the way in which I come up with my ratings, which I'll talk soon about. The ratings is very important. So there's 4 domains. Cognitive is the first one. So how focused am I? What's my clarity like? Am I ruminating? What's my executive function like? Again, tied up with anxiety, but also things like ADHD and those obsessive negative thought spirals I can get into as well. So I look at my cognitive state. I look at my emotional as well. Emotion's huge. Borderline personality disorder, for example, jumps right out there. So what are my emotions like? Are they intense? Are they too intense? Am I reactive or am I feeling numb? Am I feeling overwhelmed? So the third domain is physical and the nervous system. So I spoke a bit about that before, but I'll also be expanding it to look at my sleep, to look at my overall fatigue levels, whether I'm in an agitated state or if I'm calm, somatic stress and other indicators physically that things might be potentially spiraling out of control, like shaky hands and all that sort of stuff, or is everything calm and everything feeling good? And then the fourth domain I want to look at as well is functional abilities. So what actually gets done? How am I able to communicate? How am I able to functionally communicate and to also provide myself with self-care? So the functional component is very much like the output, and the cognitive, emotional, and physical is sort of what leads to the output. So I hope that makes sense. But yes, so the reasons why it's important though that I do this is because I want to keep Dysregulated Daily grounded, okay? I don't want this to become some sort of vibes-based thing, because this is going to build down the track into something bigger, something very scientific, and I want to introduce some science around this and around lived experience, and to try and really be able to get a handle on things like mood and capacity, and to be able to transform them in a way that is scientific and can be helpful for researchers and clinicians. Now, that's not happening today, but what I'm trying to say is when I do my capacity ratings or my mood ratings, I need them to be based in a logical, not so much black and white, but as black and white as I can get it, and using metrics that are as I guess, transparent in the way in which how I've come to the conclusion to get to that score. But I don't want these scores clouded by, like I said before, the whole vibes and everything, This is science. This is scientific. I need my data to be accurate, reliable, and to have strong validity. So for me to do that, I've got to make sure that this whole process and rating scale and the scores I come up with is grounded in science, essentially. So that's why I've come up with the capacity model, which is, again, capacity equals access times stability times energy, and also the 4 domains that I want to look at daily to ensure that this doesn't turn into some woo-woo vibes thing, that it stays as scientific as possible. Those 4 domains, again, being cognitive, emotional, physical, nervous system, and functional parameters. All right, so let's look at the mood rating scales. So both rating scales are going to be 0 to 10. So mood is in there because it does capture emotional tone. It does potentially fluctuate faster than capacity, but I want to check that. I want to run the data on that and see if that's true. But it does often diverge from functional ability. Okay, so some days my mood may drop, but my capacity stays up there. But then my mood may stay down low, and then my capacity will follow it. Or maybe some days this is all a hunch, by the way. I don't know this for sure. That's the thing. This is why this is all exciting, because I've always needed to do mood charts and capacity ratings as well. And I've known this, but I haven't really been able to do it. So this is exciting because this is making me do it. But now, instead of sort of guessing at how my mood and my capacity works and what drives these things, I can actually say to myself and to potentially clinicians and researchers as well, here's the data, and this is how I got there. And you'll see that, this is logical and it makes sense. So anyway, so some days perhaps my mood will drop first, like I said, and then capacity may follow, or maybe it's capacity drops first and then my mood follows that. I'm almost certain that both of those things will happen and does happen. That's better English, does happen. But I want to see how much variance there is, and if one tends to lead the other, and all that sort of stuff. And I'll talk more about that down the track. And often too, mood and capacity are going to move together as well, I dare say. So bad days might involve feeling pretty down with my mood, and my capacity might be down as well. But then there's other days, I'm pretty sure, where one will go sky high and the other will go low. And what is that all about? Well, that's why I want the data, because I want to drill into it after Dysregulated Daily's been going for a while, and then I can figure out what it is that's going on. All right, so 0 to 10, all right? So this is how the scale works. 0 to 2 is survival. 3 to 4 is low mood. So when I say survival, I mean I'm holding on, like it's a bad day. They're the days where I'm in bed and I do a 10-second check-in, all right? So that's 0 to 2. That's all about survival. 3 to 4 is low mood and low capacity. 5 to 6 is moderate mood, moderate capacity. 7 to 8 is high. And 9 to 10 is those rare, almost perfect days. Now, I don't think too many of them is a good thing, because that may indicate something like mania or hypomania. But at the same time, a couple of those would be nice, but just let you in on a little secret. I don't get many of them, but I'll let you know when I do, trust me, because instead of being in bed doing a 10-second video, I'll be on the top of a mountain doing a 10-hour video live stream of how great life is and how I am in control. So that's the rating scale. I've jumped a bit ahead because I haven't explained capacity as like I was sort of planning. So let me do that quickly. So very, very quickly, the capacity score is a non-judgmental descriptor. All right. So it's not about shame or guilt or saying my capacity was a 2 and I'm a loser. There's none of that. It's going to be anchored in logic. Like I said, I've explained that, but at the same time, it needs to be flexible. And it needs to be fair income, and it will be. And it's not a grade, all right? So it's not a passing grade. It's not a verdict on me and how I am and who I am. It's just the reality of things. This is how I am today. So low capacity, for example, doesn't mean that I'm a failure or that you're a failure, by the way. Because we all have got these same metrics in our lives as well. And high capacity as well doesn't mean that I'm extra virtuous or, I'm the chosen one either. So the numbers, the data that I'm collecting across these two scales, they're information, pieces of information. It doesn't, I've got to remember this, it doesn't form my identity, okay? But tracking both of these is going to let me see which one tends to lead, which one tends to lag, if they decouple or if they tend to stay together. And this is going to provide me with even more insights into my own mental health and how I operate. And I reckon you guys are going to get a lot from it as well, because you'll be able to, you don't have to do videos like I'm doing, and you don't even have to do proper scales and write it all down. But at the same time, if you watch the Dysregulated Daily videos and think, oh yeah, so that's how he's rated his capacity, because I listened to that full episode on the podcast. That's how he's rating capacity and mood. And if I was to do the same, I'd be doing it, you know what I mean? And then I think it's going to be really exciting. So Dysregulated Daily, I'm going to finish up quickly. But at the same time, this is all very exciting. I could just talk, but I'm not going to. But what this process is going to do, among other things, it's going to show you guys great insights. It's going to hopefully let people know that if they're going through really tough times, you can watch Dysregulated Daily and, most of the time I'm going through some pretty tough times as well. So how awesome is that? I'm in the trenches with you. We're in this together, trust me. But a big part of why I'm doing this is, as I've said, to collect data and to identify patterns. So to get sciencey for a little second, Dysregulated Daily and the data I'm collecting is longitudinal, okay? Self-reporting. It's a study into how I operate, how I feel about the world and my environment, and trying to come up with a way to understand what it is that I feel and then get some insights into the patterns that may develop and show themselves. So this is longitudinal, self-reporting. So it's a daily capacity and mood score setup, and I will be writing this all into spreadsheets and stuff, and down the track I'm going to present the data and we're going to have a look together at the ups and downs of my dysregulated life. There is going to be some contextual data in the background I'm going to collect. So, for example, hours slept the night before, if I'm working or not that day, how my medications are going, all that sort of stuff, because this is going to be, I'm going to hopefully turn this into a scientific paper eventually. That's the plan. But there's got to be a lot of daily videos uploaded before that can happen, that's for sure. So the reason why I'm doing it, again, is to identify patterns. That's a big part. It is to test the assumptions that I have when it comes to capacity leading mood or mood leading capacity, and if there's a relationship between both or if there's not. So I want to test these assumptions, and I want to understand what actually helps in trying to regulate my mood versus what feels like maybe it helps. So, for example, this isn't really true, but this is an example. All right, this isn't me being serious, but maybe I have this assumption that when I get 2 hours sleep, I reckon that feels better for me and I'm able to function better. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to track things, data entries about sleep, for example, and then I might see, when I have 2 hours sleep, I actually have very low capacity, and when I have 8 hours, my capacity is higher. Wow, I've done the statistical analysis and there's a scientifically significant result here. Well, there you go. So basically what I'm trying to do, this is what I'm really trying to do. Well, there's a few things, but one of the big things is, right, lived experience. I'm a big advocate, obviously, for lived experience, and I think lived experience is the key to helping people in the community who are going through very difficult mental health episodes or mental health existences, I suppose, because I want the science, I want the research that we collect as scientists to be driven by lived experience, to be guided by it, to be co-designed by lived experience, and to be for the consumer of mental health services. And that's why I love the work they do at the University of Newcastle, because what we come up with is stuff that actually is about thinking about the end user and being, okay, we've got this problem in the community. We want to come up with an intervention that might help this particular group of people. For me at the uni, we do men's mental health predominantly. So, I want to do something for men's mental health, but let's look to lived experience to guide us on how to design this intervention so it actually helps the people that need it. So that's what I want to try and really push, that, and advocate for that. So what I'm trying to do with all of this, among other things, is to operationalize lived experience. So lived experience at the moment, this is another full episode. I'll only talk about it briefly, but lived experience, people are starting to understand that it is very valuable, but I think scientists and researchers are struggling to understand how to measure lived experience and then transform those measures, those metrics, the data, remember that's what I'm collecting here, into a form that can then guide research moving forward. So what I'm trying to do is come up with a way to get lived experience from just being, a nice story that people tell to actual data, scientific data that can be used to then inform research moving forward. So at this point, as the rain is tumbling down again, at this point, this experiment, this study, I suppose I'm doing, is only exploratory. So I haven't come up with hypotheses yet. I'm not trying to prove anything just yet. I'm trying to figure out whether this is a valuable and viable thing to do, and if it has merit moving forward with trying to advocate for lived experience in science, basically. So N equals 1. So for you psychology students and statisticians, N is the number of people in this sample, and that sample is me. Just me, Elliot 1. So again, if I want to get scientific, which I really do, my ability to prove any sorts of main effects or anything, like that is pretty limited because it is just about me. But that's the thing. This is exploratory. I'm trying to figure out, is this a viable way of doing things, and what does the data tell me? And then what hypotheses can I generate from this and then test out in a more rigorous way, a more rigorous psychological, scientific way. But this is still rigorous though. This isn't some airy-fairy woo-woo stuff. Like, this is legitimate, especially the capacity rating, because that is embedded in solid foundations. I've got the formula, I've got the key domains that are going to ensure that score is as accurate, reliable, and valid as it can be. Okay, I'm about to finish. Thank you everybody for listening if you made it this far. This is a big one, but this is a very important one as well. Now, Dysregulated Daily, what is its other main purpose? Well, basically, it's to free up my abilities to record the full-length podcast episodes, because at the moment, I get very stressed out. I get very annoyed and agitated at the fact that I'm not putting out enough content on the podcast. And because of that, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I get very anxious every time I sit down to try and record, because I get really, I get stage fright in a way, because I'm like, I really need to get this done, or else I'm going to be so annoyed. And I know that if I get this done, it is pushing myself towards, what I want to try to achieve in life, So I make it, huge, bigger than Ben-Hur, as they say. And the problem is, I collapse under the weight of my expectations. So Dysregulated Daily is a way for me to be pumping out content, so I feel good about that, and then there's less pressure on me to record here on the main show. And that lessened pressure, I'm hoping, will then free up my capital and my capacity to be able to then do these episodes, okay? Because there's so much content I want to talk about here on the podcast, and it's going to be unreal. I just need to free myself up so I can talk about these things in a way that is reliable for you guys listening, so there's episodes coming, okay? And that's the plan. So there's going to be this strategic separation between both Dysregulated Daily and the Dysregulated podcast, although they're one and the same really. But Dysregulated Daily absorbs the day-to-day fluctuations in my mood and capacity. So the main podcast is now freer to do the long-form storytelling, of which I've got so many stories to tell. You guys have no idea. Seriously, like, you guys know next to nothing about me. There is so much more coming. I will be diving into the research and the science behind these mental health disorders and the theories and the therapies that go with it. I want to explore the history of psychology and human behavior as well, and the systems that govern us. I want to build frameworks properly around a lot of these constructs and concepts in psychology and with lived experience. And I want to tell the big stories, and I want them to be cohesive, and I will let you guys in on every piece of insight I can. Okay, so Dysregulated Daily, to sum up, it holds the noise, okay? So the podcast can go deep. So it reduces pressure on me. That's the plan. So I don't have to be in a good place to record these big episodes, because I know that I've got content going. It's all right. Chill out, Elliot. Just chill, all right? And just talk. Go. Okay? And it's good too, because I won't have to feel as though I need to explain where my headspace is at every time I jump on here, which is what I feel compelled to do, because I want you guys to know how I'm going, because that's the whole point. So Dysregulated Daily is going to do that in a very nice, succinct way. And when I'm talking about things, I don't have to explain too much the context in which I'm talking about it here today, because you guys, if you listen to Dysregulated Daily, or not just listen, watch as well. I forget that part. You're going to be watching me too. How cool. But, if you're watching those videos, then you already know the context in which I'm talking to you, for example, here today. And I reckon that's pretty cool. It's going to be so awesome. You guys are going to know literally everything about me. How good is that? And you're going to see how agitated and grumpy and angry and just I get sometimes, which is going to be interesting as well. So Dysregulated Daily, it's going to lower the activation energy needed to record. It's going to remove, hopefully, this need for perfection, which always stops me from producing these episodes. Because there is more content coming. So it doesn't have to be perfect because you guys are already checking in. It's all good. You know what I'm like. You know how I sound like. You know how I explain things. It's going to externalize this idea of self-monitoring, which I'm hoping is going to slow down my ruminations that I have internally. So instead of going over my head constantly, how am I feeling? It's all in Dysregulated Daily. I can download or upload, whatever. And, it's all good. And the fact that I'm doing these episodes every day is going to give my nervous system some predictability as well. It's going to give me some routine, and it's going to really, hone my focus on mental health and lived experience and what I'm trying to achieve. So to finish up, Dysregulated Daily is for everybody, but it's certainly for people, for example, who are suffering from anxiety disorders, who have ADHD, OCD, borderline personality disorder, the mood disorders, autism, neurodivergent, all of those things, because I am all of those things. So if you're looking for somebody and some content that you may be able to relate to, if some of those things relate to you and you have an affinity with those disorders, or you care about someone who does, well, I've got just about all of them. So, listen to me talk. I reckon you'll see some similarities, and together we can feel, less alone and try and make sense of this crazy, crazy world. Dysregulated Daily is certainly for people who are functioning but still struggle. So there's people who are high functioning. Supposedly I'm high functioning, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out, won't we? But if you're high functioning but still struggle with things, I think you'll relate to a lot of the content. I think people who are tired of being told, just be positive, just be happy, because mood's not everything, as I am going to show. Mood is part of the story, but certainly isn't all of the story, and I am not so convinced it's the most important part either. And I do think clinicians, researchers will get something from this as well. Researchers will probably look at my methodology and put holes all through it, but I'd like to think that my general premise and what I'm trying to achieve is quite sound. And clinicians maybe will get a bit of insight into what it's like living with these disorders as well. But of course, I would hope that you would get those insights, those insights here on the show too, because I don't know, between the Dysregulated podcast and Dysregulated Daily, it just about ticks every box. It's got to. You don't have to watch Dysregulated Daily every day, but just know that it will be there. It will be there every day, even through the bad days. There's going to be a lot of them, and you're about to see what it's like for me going through that. So what comes next, just to finish up. So Dysregulated Daily needs to continue for quite a long time so I can get enough data to be able to come up with these patterns and see if we can make sense of these things scientifically. There's going to be, I'm going to do some, some like the milestone episodes, like, I don't know, day 50, for example, episode 50 or episode 100. I'm going to do some longer form reflections on them and maybe what the data in an interim sense is already saying, and I'll do those episodes here on the podcast. But maybe down the track too, there might be some visualizations, and I'll do some graphs and summaries and stuff, but that's down the track. At the moment, I just need to take the pressure off, get these things done, and be happy about that, and to work hard on improving my mood, but especially improving my capacity, which I reckon underpins just about all of this. So this isn't about optimization, maybe one day, but not yet. It's not. It is about being as honest and as fair income, genuine, real as I can be. This is about, strengthening my commitment to you guys that this podcast and this video series together is the most insightful and raw look at what it's like living with complex mental health disorders, what it's like living with mental illness. You know, there's no secrets here. There are no secrets. I want you guys to know everything about me because there is a lot of moving parts to my story, and there's been some pretty bad experiences that I think, though, I can use for good, and I'd like to think have been using for good, and will offer some insights that may help people. And I need that to be true. And if that is true, I need to be able to get that message across because, you know, there's a lot of people in the community struggling. There really is. You know, I'm one of them for sure, but it's not just me. And I don't know, my heart just goes out to those people. And if you are one of those people, I'm telling you, you're not alone. Watch the Dysregulated Daily series and you're going to see I'm in the trenches with you. Don't worry about that. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope that explains Dysregulated Daily a little bit. I did sort of go on and on a little bit there, but what can I say? I'm pretty excited about this series. I'm pretty excited I've finally got the first video up. It's been months in the making, and I'm so glad I've finally done it. And I'm so glad I've finally done this episode as well. This is cool. I'm actually on a roll again. How good's this? All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you're enjoying the show, remember to like, subscribe, please. Give the show a great rating because it's good for the algorithm. And you can share the show around with your mates. You can follow me on Instagram at elliot.t.waters. You can follow the show at thedysregulated.podcast. Yes, the podcast Instagram is back. You can follow the show on Facebook by searching for The Dysregulated Podcast, and also search for The Dysregulated Podcast on YouTube, because all episodes and Dysregulated Daily videos are going up there as well. So that's it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time on Dysregulated Daily, and we'll see how I'm going today, how today's been. All right. Thank you, everybody. See you later.